Yes. So good afternoon and welcome to this session on creativity, innovation, and inventive problem solving. So let's do a quick review of what we were doing in the last class. So who will speak up? What was it that we were discussing in the last class? In fact, last two classes. Hmm? Function ranking. Interesting. And so what are functions? Trimming. You can speak up. Yanai. Simply unmute and speak. So what is a function? What is a function? Where is it defined? How is a function defined? ठीक है ऐसे बैठते हैं.
Something that takes an input and provides an output, that's a function. A one-to-one mapping is a function.
Something that takes an input and defines an output. Is that what we discussed in the class?
Sir, actually, I was not present in the previous class and I didn't see the last recordings. I'll just go back and see them again.
Okay. So Parth, the function definition that you're given is more for the functions as you would define them in software. But the functions as we defined them in the last class are different when we talk of it in terms of creativity and function modeling. So who can correct Parth here?
Interaction between components of a system.
So basically one component, if it's changing some parameters or activity of another component, then we can say that it is this function is being formed.
Yes. So what we are saying is that in any engineering system, there are many components and those components interact amongst each other and with other components in the super system. So what is a super system? What is the difference between engineering system and engineering and the super system?
No rest mass and having rest mass.
Context.
Context. What do you mean by context?
Like super system is the context in which the engineering system is working.
So engineering system is the system or the product or the app or whatever it is, whatever it is that you are handling, whatever it is that you want to improve or create or something. That is an engineering system. You define its contents, you define or whatever its contents are predefined, and that is, suppose you are talking about a hair dryer, then the hair dryer and the components of the hair dryer are the engineering system. Whereas here is a super system component. The user or the hand with which the user holds the hair dryer is a super system component. So these would be super system components and they are not a part of the hair dryer. So what we were saying about functions was that a component in the system may interact with another component in the engineering system itself or another component in the super system. And if that interaction leads to some meaningful, whether it is harmful or useful, we do not know, but some meaningful means some change or maintenance of the parameters of that component, which is consequential to the system. Zyada complex ho gaya na? So we said that there are functions which, so when two components interact, whether they are super system components or system components, when they interact and parameters of one of them are either changed or maintained, then there is a function that is existing between them. Any doubts, any questions? Okay, then if we say that those are the functions in between them, what was the categories in which we had splitted functions into? Topmost category.
The basic function, auxiliary
इससे भी
function,
पहले, इससे भी पहले.
harmful, and another is normal function. It was
Harmful and useful.
Useful function.
useful.
Harmful and useful functions. Harmful functions we did not even bother to detail much. Useful functions, what did we talk about the useful functions? How do you further categorize or classify them?
Excessive function and insufficient function.
Okay, that was on the basis of performance. And yeah, so you said that, okay, these useful functions, some of them we would classify them on the basis of their performance. Some are excessive, some are normal, some are insufficient. Normal is what you desire, excessive and insufficient are both undesired. Okay, then what?
Sir, we were talking about auxiliary functions, additional functions, and the basic function.
Very good. So what is an auxiliary function?
It is a useful function which the engineering system component performs on the engineering system component only.
Perfect. What about additional?
When the engineering system component is performing a useful function on a super system component other than the target.
Okay, what is a target?
Target is basically the one on which the basic function is being performed.
What is the basic function?
Main function of our main function under consideration.
So is the definition of basic function and main function interchangeable?
Yes.
Yes. Sure. Huh? Sure.
Main function is one of the basic function.
Main function is one of the basic functions. There could be many more basic functions. What is the definition of a basic function?
A basic function is the function that is done on the target, and main function would be the actual USP for which we are building the system.
So basic function is any function that a system component is doing on the target. And the other functions that any other component might be doing on the target would be basic functions only. Okay, so main function is a special basic function. That main function is the reason for which the system exists in the first place. Okay, so that was about the functions and that. So which kind of functions do we, or how do we not define a function? What were the rules of defining a function?
There has to be physical touch.
Good. The two components in which we are saying a function exists, there has to be a physical touch between them. Okay. Next.
And a parameter of the object of the object should change.
Should necessarily change?
No.
It should change or maintain.
Yeah.
Yes.
It should either change or be maintained. Okay, great. And what kind of functions do you not define?
The declarative ones.
Like
Safety.
Example. So what does safety mean? Safety is not a function.
So like the example that we have given, that helmet that a soldier is wearing. So we cannot say it is like protecting the soldier, but we can say that the bullet will get deflected. That way it can be defined.
Yeah. So yes. So what we said was that we cannot say that the helmet enhances safety. That is not a right function, because safety is not something that you can measure as an engineering system component, or a parameter. What can you measure? Physical parameters like direction or motion, speed, whatever. So instead we said that the function of the helmet is to deflect the bullet or to stop the bullet. So declarative functions are not desirable. What other functions are not desirable?
Could you repeat the question?
What other function definitions are not done? Like what other function definitions are not acceptable?
Negative.
Negative formulations of functions. That it does not get wet. Doesn't work. So it stops water from entering into the system. That is what would be a function. It stops water, not that it does not get wet. Okay. So that much about functions. Then we went into function model. Do we model all the functions in our function model? Do we model all the functions in our function model?
Not the harmful ones.
Okay. We don't model harmful functions. Which functions do we not model? Think again.
Anything other than useful and harmful.
यही तो category थी ना top level की देवजीत. They were the only two categories in which every function would be classified. Useful and harmful. तुम कह रहे हो ये दोनों करने हैं model, तो इसका मतलब सारे करने हैं. The question is which ones do you not model?
So initially we model all of them, and then we looked at if the functionality is also low and the cost is also high, then we discard those functions.
Okay, so here you are entering into trimming. So see, you remember we talked about coffee example?
Yes, sir.
Coffee heats air is not of consequence, but air cools coffee is of consequence.
Yes, sir.
So we only model functions which are of importance.
Hmm.
Functions which are not important to the problem that we are handling, we do not model them. Which are of no consequence to the system at all, actually. We don't model them. So that was one thing. So now, Malika, you already introduced trimming. So what is trimming? What is trimming?
Reducing system components.
Yeah, removing system components, which are, how do you choose those system components?
Which
perform only a
which are
single task or something.
which are of low value.
If we can redistribute their functions to other components.
Rules पे आते हैं summary. Rules पे आते हैं. पहले how to identify which ones to target for trimming. That's the first step.
Which are of low value.
Passing event.
Okay, which are of low value. Go back to the paint filling example. Did we choose the function, the first component to be trimmed based on value? Why did we choose the first component to be trimmed in that particular example?
So because it was only passing
auxiliary function, because it was an auxiliary function.
वो तो value में ही आ जाएगा ना. Why did we choose to trim the float first?
Because that was harmful.
Yes, because it was a carrier for a harmful function. It was doing a harmful function in the system. So the first thing that you want to trim is components which are causing harmful functions. Then you say, okay, if I want to go to radical trimming, then I would look at components which have low value. So less number of functions, primarily auxiliary functions, and high cost. So low value. That is what I will remove. That is what is radical trimming. But in regular trimming, the first choice is those components which have harmful functions associated with them. Then you also look at low value, but the first most important target for trimming is remove the harmful functions from the system. Because as soon as you remove the function carrier of the harmful function, you can safely assume that the function would also go away. The harmful function would also go away. So now tell me one thing. If you want to remove you want to trim one particular component, what are the rules of trimming?
Function should be assigned to some other component of the system, or it should be self-assigned to that system.
Okay, function would the component would do the function by itself.
Yeah, that was one.
Okay.
Or
Yes.
it could
there
be
is another
transferred.
component that can do the same useful function.
Another component in the system which does the same function on that object. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And third rule. 3 rules.
Probably the third one was that if the component that whose object was that component, and the parent component goes away, then the child component doesn't make sense. So that function goes away.
Okay. So if there is a component, if there is another component which has the same okay. So there are 2 components A and B. You want to trim A. A is the function carrier, B is the function object, and there is a useful function from A to B. Now this useful function needs to be reassigned. So we look for another component C in the system which has some other function with B, and that C is ready to take or has the capacity to take up this additional function that A was performing on B. That is the third way we can remove A from the system. Clear? So first is B does its job itself. So A is not needed. Second is there is another component C that does the same function as A does on B. So C will do this function of A also. Third is that there is another component C which does some other function on B. Not the function that A does, but I can somehow do C the function that A also did. So again, I will be able to remove A. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So this is how we do the trimming. Now tell me. Yes.
Sir, can you explain the difference between rules 2 and 3?
Those 2 and 3 matlab? Rules 2 and 3. Okay. So rule 2 says that if there is a component A that acts on component B and I want to remove A, if there is another component C in the system that does the same function as A does on B, for example, A holds B. So there could be another function C that could be there could be another component C that could also be holding B. है ना? So there could be a okay. So when you wear those क्या कहते हैं, gallis कहते हैं, the belts that you wear from the shoulders, gallis. What is that called? Trousers के साथ you wear. So you have a belt that you tie on the waist, and you also have these gallis. So both are doing the same function of holding the trousers in place. You can remove one of those components and assign that function to the remaining component C there. And rule 3 said that, okay, there was another component which was doing some function on B, not really holding B, but some function on B. This component C will also ask to hold B. If A was holding B, then this component C will also ask to hold B in addition to doing whatever it was doing. Suppose it was moving B. So it was move B and also hold B. Is it okay?
Yes. Yes.
Any further questions on trimming?
Sir, I remember there was also some rule like wherein if we remove the object, only then we can also remove the function carrier because the object has been removed. So what was that?
Yeah, that was also a part of rule A only, that either the object does the function itself or the object is removed altogether. So the object is not there, then why do you need to keep a component? Suppose I removed the float. Now there was another component which was holding the float there. Now since its only function was hold the float and float is not there, then that object can be removed. That was a part of rule A, that either the object does its function itself or the object is not there.
Okay. Yes.
Because you already trimmed it for some reason. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
So I had a basic question. Like we did functional analysis and then we did the CECA.
We did CECA, then we did functional analysis.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So in a practical problem, are these sequential processes or they're complementary, or how does that work?
So you will need to do them anytime. For example, suppose you okay, in this case we did CECA first, paint modeling system. We did CECA and we saw okay, float is the problem, and then we did the function modeling, and then we did the trimming. So it is not necessary. It is not necessary that you need to do CECA first. It can happen that there is a system in which you do the function modeling, and then you see that, okay, this component is not working properly. There could be some particular transistor which is not sinking the right amount of current there, let us say. Then you do CECA and see why is it not sinking the current. Then you ask those whys. What is happening? Why is its input not coming? Then you go to debug mode and then you identify where the problem is and then you work on the problem. So it could be that you see some interaction which is harmful and you ask why on that, why is it harmful or insufficient, and then you ask why is it insufficient, and then you solve the problem there. So it is not that they are sequential, it is just that they are two independent tools and they should be used whenever you see they are needed.
And then the follow-up question would be that for the trimming, using the trimming tool, do we necessarily have to do the functional analysis first?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If you do not do it, then how will you know which useful functions need to be reassigned?
So we do
you may remove a component. See, what can happen is you see, oh, there is a harmful function. Let me remove this component. But then who takes care of the useful functions that that component does? You're able to see this?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So, either we say that this particular component is doing only harmful functions. That would not usually be the case. That can be the case though. Today, if there are legacy systems, then with the advancement of technology, it could happen that there are components which are not doing any good. They're just there because they were there. They were needed at some point of time, but today's technology, they're not needed. But they are there. So their only function is harmful function, that they are increasing the cost. Or they're causing some problem somewhere. So that is easy to handle. But that may not always be the case. There will be systems which are really lean and you need to improve them. And there are some stuff that is doing harmful functions. So you cannot simply remove those components. So function modeling is mandatory before you start trimming.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
So any other questions? Great. So can you give me a quick check on what is the status of your projects? How many of you have started your projects, done some function analysis? So how many of you done a function analysis? Just put a +1 in your chat window of your problem statement or something. Okay, usse bhi pehle, how many of you have identified and zeroed in on the problem that you want to work on? Put a +2 in the chat window. Okay, quite a few of you. How many of you have not identified or zeroed in on the problem yet? Put a -1. Okay, so a few teams have not done that yet. Okay, so what we are going to do today, it will actually help you, possibly support you to zero in on the problem much, a little more. So let's see. But before we enter into the real session there, I would say that let us have a quick look at some logistics. So I came to understand that you guys are not really benefiting or attending office hours of the TAs much. So there was a request to change my office hours from Monday. So I will not be meeting you today. I will be meeting you on Friday now. So my office hours will be Fridays 1 to 2 p.m. And Soumya, because otherwise Soumya's office hours were also on Friday and Ribhav's office hours were also on Friday. So Soumya has kindly agreed to keep her office hours on Thursday afternoon instead. Okay. So we have classes on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then we have office hours on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. So you are well covered through the entire week. If you have any questions, any doubts, you can join any of the office hours. Does that help? Any concerns regarding this? Okay. So this is directly in response to the request that you had put in the last class that I should keep my office hours on some other day also. Okay. So now today we will cover another part of problem identification, because I see some of you have not really been able to identify the problem yet, which includes stress benchmarking, feature transfer, and hopefully 9 screens also we will cover today. Otherwise we will cover that tomorrow. So what is stress benchmarking? So stress benchmarking is that, for example, you have a product idea or a problem statement in mind that you want to solve this particular problem. And let us say you also have a proposal in mind that you want to solve this problem through this particular proposal. However, there are alternatives which would already exist. Alternatives could be right there in the market doing similar work as you, or alternatives could be similar solutions in another market somewhere. Like India में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, but US में ऐसा है. So there is no solution over here, but there is some solution elsewhere. So these could be alternatives. Now, when you did the CECA, or when you did the function modeling, or when you did other stuff, you could arrive at main parameters of value. That okay, this is a main parameter of value. This is a main parameter of value. So what we do is we make a kind of a table. We say we will list down main parameters of value like this, and we will list down alternatives like this. And we will rate each alternative on these main parameters of value. And we will also rate our proposal. So what happens? Do you realize that if I look at it, then this particular solution, my proposal, is just an incremental improvement over alternative 3. If I could improve this and these features of alternative 3 a bit, I could arrive at my solution. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Now, if it is something like you are in a company, you are trying to solve a problem in a production line, then adapting alternative 3 so that it meets the requirements of your proposal, or improving alternative 3 so that it meets the requirements of your proposal, works absolutely fine, because this alternative 3 is already existing within your company. However, if you are a startup, or if you want to start up your own venture, then alternative 3 is a very major competition for you. You would not want to operate like that. Then what would you do? Because as soon as alternative 3 notices that you are on the market, they will improve themselves on the first 2 MPVs, and they will become a formidable workforce. They will not have, like, you will not be able to wean away customers from them at all. In fact, they will cannibalize your customers. Okay, we are a well-established platform. Why do you go with a startup there? Come to us. So what do you do in that case?
This startup can provide some extra MPV that was not being fulfilled.
The startup could say, okay, let me see if there is another MPV that I can offer that alternative 3 is bad at, or other alternatives are bad at. And then that proposal, so you strengthen your proposal so that it is important for a customer to, so then you will pivot your sales, then you will pivot your proposal and everything along MPV 4. So MPV 4 has to be a strong enough MPV, and that is what will define your market. Are you able to see this? That is what will define your key and exclusive market. Lapreet, sorry.
Can you explain this benchmarking thing?
So what have you understood till now? I will add to it.
So I didn't understood.
So you are able to see the slide. So can you explain the slide to me as of now?
Sir, I'm not able to understand. Otherwise, not a thing.
So who can explain?
So we pick up different MPV. I mean, we pick up different ideas with different main parameter values, and then we along our discussion, like we have selected one MPV, then we select alternatives, like depending on the problems that we have with the original one, and then see the reactions. I mean, see all the plausible cases for all these alternatives, and that's why we have written it in the table, all the reactions that we have.
Okay. Anyone else would want to add?
So first we have identified the MPVs that we would like to work on, where we have some proposal for it. Then we researched in the market that there are some alternatives that beside our proposal, they are already present, and how much they are fulfilling these MPVs. So red face here means they are not fulfilling these MPVs, and smiley face means they are fulfilling these MPVs. And so we are creating a table sort of, so that we can compare how our proposal will perform as compared to the already present alternatives.
Thank you, Shakti. So what we are saying is that first you identify what are the main parameters of value for the product that you want to sell, or for the problem that you want to solve. What are the main parameters of value that need to be present in the solution there? Then you look for alternative solutions. If you are in a conventional workplace, then where could the alternative solutions be? They could be in other teams' solutions. You know, you are designing product A, there is another team in your same group that is designing product B, and they are solving the same problem in some particular way. So you list down, okay, these are the 3 alternatives that are existent. Or you could study patents, you could study papers, academic papers, and say that, okay, these are the different alternatives I found, and in terms of these MPVs, this is how they fare. So we made this colored smiley scale. The red frowning one is, oh, terrible, and dark green joyful one is, oh, I'm happy. So we make the scale, and we see that so until MPV4 was introduced, we see that MPV3 is very close to what we want. So if we can simply improvise alternative 3, we could be as good as our proposal. So that is the solution that we pick up and that we improvise on. However, if you are a startup, then the game changes. Then this alternative 3 is your biggest competitor. Then this alternative 3 is your biggest competitor. So you take an extra step. You say that, okay, let me define another parameter of value, main parameter of value 4, where even alternative 3 would falter. And our solution would stand out. And this MPV4 is what I will pivot to the users of alternative 3 to pull them over to my product. And say for alternative 2, I will pivot MPV1 to pull them to my product. For alternative 1, again, MPV3 and probably MPV1 is something that I would pivot to pull them to my product. Lovepreet, is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what? I have identified that, okay, there are these 4 MPVs. I went out to my venture cap. I want to now reach out to my venture capitalists and seek funding. So what do I do? Do you realize that to develop a proposal into a product and seek funding may take a lot of time, and in that time the market may evolve, the market may change, needs may change, another MPV may appear? Can that happen? Or probably alternative 3 would kind of also catch up somewhere. Can it happen?
Yes, sir.
So as an entrepreneur, your key goal, key objective has to be reduce the time to market. So now do not look at it only as an entrepreneur. Look at it also as, if you want to give absolutely final product to the customer, you cannot really wait for 3 years when your solution is fully ready. You somehow want some early feedback so that you can improvise you know that you're on the right track. See, everything given, market dynamics are not in your control. Customer requirements are not in your control. Are they? No. So what do? You now design what we call as minimum viable product. So over here, we're talking about MPV, minimum main parameter of value. Over here, I've just played around with the terms and what we call it as minimum viable product. Now, what is this minimum viable product? Have you heard about it earlier?
Yes.
What is minimum viable product?
A basic prototype of our final product from which we can get some feedback.
So we want this prototype to be cheap. We want to be able to arrive at this prototype very early. So if you notice,
can provide the functionality that is required for the customer, but maybe it's not the end product that needs to be tested.
Yes. For example, see, this was the key MPV because of which someone would move from alternative 3 to my product. This improvement I have kept intact. Whatever was the weakness of alternative 3, that also I improved. What was already a reasonable strength, I wanted to be much stronger there. There I did not put much effort. So I've cut down on my efforts a bit. And or you know, instead of this green over here, it could be a yellow. That I show some improvement and let us see, does the customer want it? But yellow yahan pe bhi tha. That is why I chose to give a light green there. Okay. So what we are trying to do is we want to put a quick prototype into the system and see into the market and see what the response is. For those of you who are circuit designers, for example, you would want a quick silicon feedback. Okay, let me just bring some things together and take a quick feedback. If it is working, if the customer is happy with this prototype, or even before silicon feedback, you would say, okay, let me just make a model. Let me make a model and send it to the customers and get feedback from them. Does it help them? If the model works, great, I will go on to silicon fabrication, because going to the final product could be very costly. So you have to look at what is the MVP, minimum viable product, which the customer can play with and give you feedback. And that MVP is also defined based on this benchmarking. Do you realize this? Because you have to differentiate yourself from other alternatives that exist in the market. Any questions?
Sir, can you explain why here feedback is important?
Okay, let us say that to give your final product, there is a cost of 50 lakh rupees involved, let us say. Now, if you bring your first product into the market after investing that 50 lakh and realize, oh, there is this error that has crept in, or there is this feature that I did not consider, and therefore my product is not selling. Or you say, okay, I will release a alpha version of my product after investing about 10 lakhs. And then how to invest my remaining 40 lakhs or how to invest my remaining next 10 lakhs or next 20 lakhs will depend on which of these 2 or 3 new features that I added in my product does the customer like the most. So I will develop those features first. Or what is the sore point that customers find in my product? I will remove that sore point. So then how to use the remaining part of my funding, I will base it on the feedback from the customer. So what would you get that feedback on? You would get that feedback on what is called as a minimum viable product. Minimum product that is viable for a customer to use and play with. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Any further questions on this?
Sir, taking a look at this table, can we like confirm that MPV3 is the most important kind of the basic parameter of value?
No. MPV3 is in fact something which is already met everywhere.
So
and
like
met very well.
So let's say I was like kind of thinking to myself, like, let's say it is 2015 and 4G has just come up. So like MPV3 is like providing the 4G capability, and MPV2 could be like cost, and MPV1 could be like the camera quality, something like that.
Okay.
So here the ability to call becomes the most important thing. So every product is trying to do better on that at first, then they are proceeding at the next step. So MPV3 is the most important.
So ऐसा नहीं कह सकते Devjit. I would say that MPV3 is something which is definitely needed in the market. Definitely, matlab, it is kind of a implicit function that this product has to perform anyways.
Okay, sir.
मतलब it is the most important. हाँ, but most important कुछ और होगा आपके. In this particular example, for you, the most important MPV to develop is MPV4, because MPV3 may probably become a commodity now. It is already available in all the other products. It can be possibly insourced from any other team, or could be outsourced to a vendor also, foreign corporation, because it's already well established. देखो ना सब out of so alternative 2 को अगर हम छोड़ दें तो 3 alternative से 2 alternative में तो ये बहुत अच्छी तरह से well established है.
Yes, sir.
For example, अगर हम delivery systems की बात करें तो 10 to 20 minutes delivery of food or something, जो delivery का time है, मतलब इतना छोटा जो time वाला वो है, that is already well established. Swiggy भी कर रहा है, Blinkit भी कर रहा है, Zomato भी कर रहा है, सब कर रहे हैं.
हाँ, मतलब वो देना ही पड़ेगा, वो इम्प्लिसिटी.
वो तो आपको देना ही पड़ेगा. सभी कर रहे हैं. अमेजन नहीं कर रहा, चलो ठीक है, बट अमेजन कहीं और कुछ दे रहा है. अमेजन इस पे प्ले कर रहा है.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this MPV3, in fact, you should not be applying your energy on. You should simply be picking up something which is already available off the shelves. You decide that to make my MVP, I will put my energies only on this and this. So that in a very focused way, very minimal cost, I'm able to get some feedback from the customer. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Shayna.
So while doing MPV analysis, in the table we wrote that if the demand is known and clearly expressed, and if it is unsatisfied, only then it is an MPV. Because if it's satisfied, it is PV. So why like parameter of value? So why are we using the term MPV here?
Because there are still some alternatives जहाँ पे वो satisfied नहीं है.
It's like that we are doing something better in that same domain. So
okay, so let's not you may not want to call it MPV, you may want to call it PV also, that is also fine, no problems. But is the concept of benchmarking clear? How do you do the benchmarking? I still put it in MPV because this is something that the customer definitely needs. And we said, okay, let us put it in MPV.
Okay.
Okay, because it's a decision-making thing for him. Whether I include this feature in my product or not is not a given, na? Because there is an alternative too which does not have this MPV3 as a part of it. Okay. So what according to you could be MPV, could be alternatives for your product cycle, products that you have in your mind for the course project? Would you be looking at patents? So in fact, what I would want is that for all of you, you really identify at least 2 or 3 alternatives to your proposal, your products, and do this benchmarking as teams. Okay, when you do this benchmarking, you will automatically improvise your proposal first, and you will also be able to see where exactly you as a team, as a solution provider are adding value. Are you able to see this? अब अभी MVP की बात नहीं भी करें तो भी ठीक है. I told you about MVP because you will anyway want to do something about it when you make the presentations later. But at least now at this stage, you go and benchmark your proposal, your solution idea with other alternatives. Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say there are 2 alternatives and there are 2 MPVs, and alternative 1 is good at MPV1 and alternative 2 is good at MPV2. So if I can make a proposal which where I'm doing good at both of them.
Yeah.
So will that be a good proposal?
Yes. In fact, that is all. You're leading me to the next slide, actually. So we will just now talk about it in 2 minutes. And as to how to do it.
I also have a question. So since we have not yet gone into the solutions phase, so can we just think of alternatives? I mean, without the proposal column, we can kind of build, I mean, try to identify all the MPVs and
Yeah. So what we are saying, Amit, over here is that जैसा अभी just पहले कहा कि there are 2 MPVs and 2 alternatives, and alternative 1 is good in MPV1 and alternative 2 is good in MPV2. So can I have a proposal which says I would be good in both of them? So when we want to do that, then essentially what we are saying is I would want to transfer feature of MPV1 from alternative 1 and either onto alternative 2, or I would transfer MPV2, the feature of alternative 2, onto alternative 1. So see, look at it like this. The technology alternative 1 has advanced the technology for MPV1, and alternative 2 has advanced the technology for MPV2. I now have two independent new problem statements. First problem statement is how to transfer technology of alternative 1 to alternative 2. Second one is how to transfer technology of alternative 2 to alternative 1. So my problem statement has actually changed. Instead of now creating a new product altogether, I'm only talking about feature transfer. That is why we were not looking for solutions yet. Now, the problem is feature transfer and the solutions would be something different instead of to create a new product altogether.
In a way, what you're saying is that this would help us to refine our problem statement.
Yes, to arrive at a simpler, cheaper problem statement.
Like for example, a proposal could be the proposal column kind of could be replaced as a expected solution or a problem statement that can we find something which has this one in MPV1, this one in MPV2, and so on.
Yes,
so forth.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like as a PhD student, you may want to explore, or you may have 7 figures of merit linked to, or 7 key parameters, KPIs, or whatever, 7 key things that you want to include in your solution. And there are 5 alternatives that exist in academia, in patents, and wherever. You list them down and you say, okay, in my project, I need the figure of merit of this, the first figure of merit to be this, second figure of merit to be this, third figure of, so you have your requirements there. The proposal one is the requirements column, you may say. And then you see where to transfer this feature from.
Exactly. Yeah, got it. Right.
So another way to, so now suppose you have also identified, okay, this is something that I want to do. Now you have 2 or 3 problem statements which you are toying with as to which problem statement to solve. Now, the problem statement that you want to solve can be identified or can be zeroed in by using this formula, or by kind of plotting this 3D graph, where you rate that what is the maturity of the technology when you talk of providing one particular MPV or providing one kind of a solution. You also rate the market size. Okay, if I really pivot on MPV4, what is the kind of market that I'm looking at? Should I really be pivoting on MPV4, or should I look at some MPV5, or should I say that, okay, I think the best this market is not really for me because there is a product which is already meeting the requirements and that is already growing fast. I cannot cannibalize on that product. I cannot cannibalize on the customers of that product. Therefore, I can't do it. Or as an alternative, you could say that, okay, the adjacent team is already having a solution to this particular problem and it is really good enough. So why waste company resources and why do all that hard work of creating something from scratch? Let me just improvise the solution of the other team and get it working in my system, in my solution, in my product. And the third thing, which is also very, very important, is your skill and your existing portfolio. Let us say you are already very skilled at, let us say, knowledge graphs or natural language processing. And therefore, if you choose to, no, let's not go there. Let's go to this clean air wala jo hamara theme tha, usme we were discussing in the last office hours that there are multiple ways to go for clean air, but there is this group that chose that, okay, we want to go to electric mobility. Why? Because they felt that they cannot really influence, or they do not have the know-how of fluid mechanics. So they do not know how to, say, design fans which would kind of make a vortex out of a cyclone out of air locally and let the particulate matter settle down. So they said, we can't use that, we cannot work on that, but we are electronics engineers. We would be happy to make work on electrical mobility. So where does your skill lie? Is it your strength? So you may want to choose, so you would want to rate yourself also on that I axis, and that will help you choose the product which is maximum in T, M, and I, all the three axes. So that is one way to quantify and help you make a decision on which problem to work on, which idea to work on. So first way to look at it is we do a benchmarking. Second way to help you zero in on an idea is looking at the technology, its availability, its maturity, whether it's open source or not, if it's proprietary, what it is, how quickly can you rebuild it if it is proprietary, or how quickly can a competition use the same flow and outpace you. So technology is an important parameter. Then market, and then internal alignment. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, I get it. So again, those of you who have not yet decided on which problem to work on, this tool can help. Those of you who have already decided, okay, this is the problem I'm going to work on, you may also want to put your idea through these tests. As I said, do benchmarking of your product. Also do this assessment, for your product, for your idea, that are you really skilled? Do you need, what kind of skills do you need, and all that. In this last office hours, I also encouraged many of you who wanted to work on startup ideas and wanted to implement these methods on those ideas to fill in what we call as business model canvas. So how many of you have done this course on entrepreneurial khichdi last semester? Can you put a +5 in the chat window? Those of you who have done that course. Okay, not many. So if I request Anupam to arrange a short lecture on business model canvas, how many of you would be interested? Can you put a +10 in the chat window? Okay. Okay, so there is significant interest in getting to know about business model canvas. It will kind of help you. Okay, so let me check with Anupam if I can arrange for him to talk to you guys either tomorrow or then we could have an extra class sometime and a replacement for the regular class. But yeah, I will not put extra burden on you, but we can see how BMC I can introduce that to you. Okay. Okay, so that is so this was about using technology, market, and internal alignment, or your own skill and strengths to see which idea you should be working on. So would you want to play and do some exercise in terms of HIT or in terms of doing this feature transfer? You know some alternative products or alternative competing systems that there are for your product idea? Any team that does not have any inkling of a competing system, please put a -1 in the chat window. Any team that is not aware of a competing system for themselves. Okay, so what I will do now is I will open the breakout rooms. You can go to your teams and you can discuss amongst yourselves and do some feature transfer work. Okay, do some quick benchmarking and then feature transfer work. Is that okay? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So how do you do this feature? So benchmarking you already know. Let me also quickly introduce what we call as heuristic ideation technique to all of you so that you can also use that. when you go into your breakout rooms, but that will come only after you have identified the competing systems, competing solutions, and benchmark them. Okay. So what we will do is, what is done in HIT is you pick 2 items of interest. You pick 2 items of interest and make separate lists of characteristics or components. And then you kind of make a matrix where you would say that, solution 1, solution 2, and you say components of solution 2, component of solution 2, component of solution 2, and over here you could say component of solution 1. And you could say if you could merge these 2 components and arrive at a better solution. Okay, so what we are saying is, can there be a product, can there be a system, can there be a way where we could enlarge our range of products or services so that we could have a better take up. So where do we pick up stuff from? Could be one thing. So Amir will just post just now. Amir is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Amir will just now post the Google Sheet linked to HIT, Heuristic Ideation Technique, and also a sheet linked to Morphological Forced Connections. So I think MFC is what will help you much more if you have a clear benchmark available. If you do not have a clear benchmark or clear competitor in mind, then you should use HIT. Okay. So list the attributes of the situation or the product and think of as many alternatives as you can for each attribute. So for, again, we'll make a matrix. We say MPV1, MPV2, MPV3, and we list down how does, say, whichever competition does that MPV, does provide that MPV in a desirable manner. You list down some details of their solution over here. Okay, and then you can identify that, okay, for MPV1 component, competition 1 does this thing, competition 2 does this thing, and now I would want to do something else, or I would want to co-opt the feature or the functionality of 1 into my product or 2 into my product, and so on. Are you able to see this? Any questions before we enter into the breakout rooms?
Can you show the previous slide?
Just a minute. Should we go into breakout rooms then?
Sir?
Yeah, Devjit. No, Soumyadeep, yeah.
Yeah, so in the MFC sheet, I couldn't understand the third point.
In the slide?
No, in the sheet.
The sheet that Amir has shared?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the third point there?
So it says that after we have listed down alternatives for our attributes, we need to pick up a different one from each column, assembling the combinations into an entirely new form of your original subject. So I didn't understand what to do in this point, like what it's trying to say.
So what he's saying is that it could be that a product one solves the MP or achieves MPV1 in a particular way, and it is not really up to the mark. How can you improvise it? So basically, you want to do technology transfer from them, but it is not up to the mark. How can you improvise it? That is how you can look at it over here. Does that help?
Okay, yes, sir.
So I noticed that for many of you, your team members are not here in the class yet. You may want to call them up and invite them to join the class right away, or we will see. I don't want to merge the groups, so let us see how to proceed. Okay, so I'm opening the breakout rooms. You please join them. So how was it, friends? You had discussions? Any questions that you have? How was the experience?
Sir, I think we didn't get the appropriate time. I mean, we got the gist of the idea. We were able to discuss, me and my team. But the problem lies that since we were discussing, we just, in the knack of time, we just got the pop-up that the breakout room will close and we weren't able to write down the attributes.
So see, this is the class meeting room. So I have to close the class in time. That is where, but
Yes,
please meet separately and continue to discuss.
yeah, sure.
Please do that. It's important because realize that it is only by sitting together and working on the problem together that you will be able to arrive at a solution, or you will be able to refine it further. So वो तो होना ही है, वो तो आपको टाइम तो लगाना ही पड़ेगा. You cannot, we cannot do the project inside the class. I can get you taste the project inside the class, but we cannot really do the project inside the class. So my question is, when you were doing this, what was your experience? Are there any questions? Is there something that you need clarification with? Otherwise, you can always ask them in the office hours also. Saurabh.
Sir, I have one doubt. Actually, we were discussing on our product, so we got to formulate a lot of properties and attributes of the product. But when it asked us to think for the alternate, so here by alternate we mean the alternate for the attributes of the product, or just for the other solution that we can think of to solve the same problem.
Alternate for the attributes of the product.
Okay, but how can we think attributes for the can you give an example so that we can understand it better?
I was in this room where they were talking about some solution where we want to acquire some asset and then repurpose it or give it to someone else. So we're talking कि कैसे acquire करते हैं. तो acquire करने के multiple तरीके हैं. There is one OLX way that okay, you go to OLX, you sell that, you say that I want to sell this product. So OLX platform doesn't even acquire your product. But if you go to OLX Auto and you say I want to sell my car, OLX Auto may say okay, come and give your car to me over here. Now you go to Scrap Uncle and Scrap Uncle would say okay, you raise a ticket and I will come and collect the product from your home. So there are three different ways in which the asset can be or may not be acquired at all. There are the three attributes of this component of your functionality of your app, where you wanted to say okay, मैं यहाँ से कुछ लूंगा, मैं उस पे कुछ value add करूंगा, फिर मैं किसी और को दूंगा. तो जो पहला step था उसके भी तीन तरह, there are three different ways to implement that. That is what we mean by different ways or different kinds of attributes.
Okay, sir, got it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is the purpose. The purpose of going to breakout rooms was that you go to the project and now discuss and focus on using these tools for your project. There would be questions. I don't want you to wait for office hours to ask me these questions. Ask me those questions right away. Anything else? Other teams? Things were clear? You did not face any challenge? It came along fine?
Sir? Sir, we did not get much time to do that HIT, but we did that. We listed various MPVs, and for products. So, sir, we are comparing Luna second hand, like you said, why a person should not prefer that, and the e-bike that we are proposing, and then the e-bike that was already available. So there was a point where it came like charging time. Now, thing is that for Luna, it is not applicable, and if you are comparing it like that, then it becomes a harmful function kind of, because I know there is no need for me to care about charging time there. So ultimately some negative things were also being listed there.
हाँ, तो आपको पता है कि आपको उसको अवॉइड करना है.
Okay.
So in fact, देवजीत, आप लोगों को टीम को you just go to LinkedIn, and मैंने कल ही एक पोस्ट को लाइक करा है, which is about conversion of bicycle into a e-bike. Very similar to what you guys are envisaging, but at least the product idea is very similar. You may want to do it very, very differently, and therefore you may come at a very different price point. But do check it out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're connected. So some of you are connected to me on LinkedIn. So you must have already seen that post.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, मेरी activity में जाके you can find out. Okay. Yeah. So anything else? Okay. So if there are no further questions, so Vrinda, office hours, so you guys requested don't keep them on Monday. I shifted them to Friday. And just so that there is not a long gap between two office hours, I also kept one office hours on Saturday. Is your entire team available, Vrinda?
So I think 4 of us are here.
Okay, so you can just stay back after this, and we could discuss after the class itself. Okay.
Okay.
I will, because I will not keep office hours today then.
Okay.
So, okay, guys, thank you, and see you tomorrow then. All the best. Please go back, work with your team members, refine the problem statements, start to move towards more tangible and more doable problem statements. I hope that you will arrive at them, and then we will take it up from there tomorrow. Okay. All the best.
Actually, sir, we also needed to discuss our idea with you, if it's possible today.
Yeah, please stay back. I will stop the recording.
Sure.